Okay, the meeting is called to order. We'll need a roll call to determine if we've got a quorum.
Okay. Cairns.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
Jelinek.
Here.
Miller. Here. Fagerlin. Here. Tepley. Here. Cockrell.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, was this meeting properly noticed?
Yes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Once you've all had a moment to review, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
You do not have minutes tonight.
And I got a dead tablet, so I know it. All right. Next, discussion and action items. Item 1 is a public hearing for the request to rezone 160 East Kinder Street, tax parcel ID 276-2100-5681. Is there anyone here who would like to speak during the public hearing on that request to rezone? Okay. Have to ask that 3 times. So second attempt, second request, public hearing for the request to rezone 160 East Kinder Street, tax parcel ID 276-2100-5681. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Okay, third time, public hearing for the request to rezone 160 East Kinder Street, tax parcel ID 276-2100-5681. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Mr. Wilson.
I have a question on the property. It's heating and air conditioning, electrical. Are they on, if this is rezoned to 3-4, would they be on separate controls?
Oh, I don't know why they would be on separate controls now, but that's a building inspector question. But I mean, that's,
I guess
that's really up to
my concern is if we rezone it 3-4, that down the road, someone comes in and puts 3 small apartments in there, and they're all running off the same
sure,
circuits.
if it's approved, I mean, that's something we can discuss with them at that down the line, and with the building inspector as well. Is that development dependent?
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak? Public hearing for the request to rezone 160 East Kinder Street. Okay, hearing no one else, entertain a motion to close the public hearing for the request to rezone 160 East Kinder Street, tax parcel ID 276-2100-5681. Motion from Lisa Miller, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Candace Fagerman. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of closing the public hearing for the request to rezone 160 East Kinder Street, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion is carried. Next on the agenda, consider the request to rezone 160 East Kinder Street. Did we have information on this one? Ashley and I talked this afternoon. This might not happen tonight, maybe?
That is correct. So, the applicant the applicant made application, it sounds silly as that sounds, on March 20th, and after that, newspaper posted April 4th, April 11th. Letters were sent to adjoining landowners on April 10th, and so, you know, we went through the whole process going forward. Property is currently being used as a duplex, however, it's in commercial downtown. And in their case, they have a residential unit on the first floor, a residential unit on the second floor. Commercial downtown zoning does not allow for residential units on the first floor. So that's why they came into us, but we were made aware of the situation when they put the property up for sale. And there was another property in the city that was under listing by the same real estate agent, and that's how we came across this. Excuse me, and so we requested that they come in for a rezone to bring it into compliance if they want to move further, but since that has happened, the applicants have sold the property, and so right now it's an invalid application because we don't even know who the proper landowners are, because we weren't furnished with that information. We have a roundabout way to figure out who it is just through the system with the county, but I mean, that's not our job to chase that down. They got to let us know that. So in addition to the property being sold, we don't have any information from permits at the zoning level, the building inspector level, or through the assessor that it was ever converted into a duplex.
Okay.
So that renders a problem as is. Because you're looking at, is it non-conforming or is it illegal, right? And so that's why we're looking at, was it converted before any zoning, just rendering it non-conforming right now. We don't know when it officially was converted, so it possibly is an illegal use. In addition, there's potentially a current property dispute between this property and the 80 German warehouse, and its access to Kinder Street. And so that brings up another question in this. And so those are all strikes against this application, as well as that the future land use map holds that area as commercial downtown, doesn't hold it as residential 3-4. And so having had that, the active property dispute, the applicant is no longer the property owner, first floor residential, possibly an illegal use in the comprehensive plan, staff would recommend that the rezone at this time is just denied.
Okay, so it's just deny it now, there's no reason to put it on the agenda again?
Correct.
Okay,
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
So aren't we going to have to do whatever happens, even with the new owner, we're gonna have to come back to this at some point anyway, aren't we? Because if it's commercial, uses residential with on the first floor as a duplex, possibly to a 3-4, anyway, don't we have to rezone this at some point no matter what happens going forward, since it doesn't seem to fit anything currently?
So after this meeting, what I'll do is I'll draft a decision letter and I'll send it to them.
Okay.
And that decision letter will outline their options.
Okay.
So the easiest thing to do is to not live on the first floor, and then it's in compliance. So if we render the first floor after a renovation that is not habitable for living quarters.
Would that potentially have the new buyer not want to purchase this if they're buying it for the thought of, hey, I can rent this out as a duplex, compared to you just bought a house that you can't live on the first floor?
That's a possibility. They've already purchased it.
Okay.
So it's totally in their hands at this stage, so that would be a battle between those two parties
Okay.
at a later date.
Okay.
okay, so the recommendation from zoning is to deny the request to rezone 160 East Kinder Street, is that correct?
Yes.
I'll make that motion to deny the request to rezone 160 East Kinder, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Lisa Miller, any discussion? Okay, hearing none, let's have a roll call, please, Ashley.
All right. Jelinek,
Aye.
Wilson,
Aye.
Cairns,
Aye.
Tepley,
Aye.
Coppernoll.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, next on the agenda is item 3, TID District Creation Update, Tax Incremental. Jason, is that you?
It is a team effort on this. So we have had this before you prior, and we've talked about the importance of tax incremental districts and the fact that we've only got one district that's active now, which is around the property of Panorama Estates. Tax incremental districts basically are a financial tool that has been established through state statute, and it's a power given to municipalities as long as you're working with all of the entities that are able to receive property tax. So we have been looking this as a way to spur on development for some time. Again, we had it before this body. We've been working with Southwest Regional Planning Commission on identifying what we think could be the boundaries of new TIF districts. So you can see it's very small, but we do have a preliminary map of what staff and Regional Planning Commission and the different people that have been consulted on this believe to be what we call TID number 7. And it covers a lot of area that probably had been covered before by former TIF districts, including areas of Orange Street that, Orange Street redevelopment started back in the late 80s. And so some of this district is actually probably overlaid over what was previously a district. But the reason the district kind of looks the way it does is that there are a lot of key properties. One, we continue to want to work on Orange Street redevelopment. Two, it encompasses Story Field, which, as we've been before the commission several times talking about the potential for Story Field redevelopment. It covers the hospital properties, which of course their project has been delayed. However, they continue to do long-range planning that would suggest a potential move. And it covers over, a number of properties that are blighted or that we have had significant conversations on the redevelopment of them. So we'd be glad to provide this map so that you can really study it if you want to, and we're glad to field any questions on this. There is a very lengthy process that we have to go through that includes numerous public hearings, notifications, meetings with the other entities that receive property tax dollars. So it would be Southwest Tech, or did that just change the tech, how they receive funding? Anyway, it is the schools, it is the county, and it is the city. And it has been historically Southwest Tech. And there have to be, representatives that are coming in, they're reviewing this. It's a very, again, lengthy process to submit this as an application to the state. So there would be a lot of phases that we have to go through. And I believe it's actually roughly a 3-month process from the time that you activate the first meeting.
We're anticipating at this point that at your next meeting in May, you will be the first body to formally review and consider this TID. So you'll have more paperwork, Southwest Regional Planning will be here, etc. But we wanted to make sure you're aware of this, you've had time to see this, opportunity to see it, and then are better situated for that first meeting next month on it.
I got a question on the boundary. On the north side of Orange Street, where Chet's, the intersection of Orange Street and 6th Street, where the old Chet's used to be.
Okay.
Yeah, right there. Could that be incorporated into this TID?
It certainly can. One of the, I would say, tactics of designing a TIF district is, one, you only have a certain percentage of your value of the property in the city that can be included in the district. And so in the process of identifying the properties that go in, you're looking at properties that are in a very solid, good condition and are in a good use for the future of the community. And so in looking at that property, it's in fairly good condition, and at this point, at least in our conversations, we weren't aware of any substantial change. However, it is not difficult to include it. The property values there would not be super high probably. This might, part of it, be actually non-taxable. So we can always have those discussions and talk about variations to the boundary.
Do you also want to mention about the half-mile radius?
Yeah, so one of the elements of a TIF district is the half-mile radius of the district, which basically allows you to use the revenues that are generated inside the district that's identified within a half-mile of the boundary for development purposes. And I believe, Mark's kind of a pro on this stuff too, so I believe that oftentimes you're looking to find out if you need to do infrastructure improvements, like that's the easiest level to use it. But you can't capture the revenues. If you take the money from the TIF and invest it in that half mile from the boundary, you're just not capturing the new revenues back into the TIF. So there are a few caveats, but there is that flexibility to use revenue generated within the TIF to assist development outside of the boundary.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments on TID district creation? All right, thank you, Jason. Next on the agenda, item 4, city boundary agreement.
Want me to go with that one? So, one of the things, and I don't recall if we've, I think we have probably discussed it in passing, but we want to continue to kind of keep it on an agenda here so that we're reminded that we need to keep you informed, and that there will be future work we're expecting on a city boundary agreement. So some of that is occurring because we're running into difficulties with what they would refer to, I think, as sawtooth boundaries of a municipality. In our case, it has resulted in situations where we're not able to establish contiguous districts for TIF financial districts. And so it really renders the tool much more difficult to use. And so, you know, one of the things that you always try to avoid in city planning is what they call balloon string connections to your municipality. And so the city of Richland Center has numerous balloon string issues where, you know, this large body of property is within the city limits. It goes down to a very, very narrow strand, oftentimes following a railroad bed. That situation exists out on Highway 14. Some I see Ray nodding. Some of you are aware of the issues that have existed along Highway 14 where there's some properties are in and then other properties are out. And that's it's a difficult way to advance your municipality through good planning. And so what we're doing with the boundary agreement conversation is we're looking at the properties that create balloon string isolated properties, properties that may have been extended utilities that are not in the city limits, which is another kind of oddity. Properties that we think are most likely to be brought in, and also we look at where towns are maintaining roads within what you would normally think to be areas where the city should be maintaining roads. And so the goal of a boundary agreement is to talk about that strategically. It's a fairly long process to move through. We create a map similar to a TIF district map, only out surrounding the entire city. And then we begin to have conversations with Planning Commission and then the town board about what a boundary agreement might look like. That agreement is drafted between the municipality and the town, because there has to be mutual agreement that, yeah, we agree the city's boundaries should move this direction, and in exchange for that, perhaps, you know, tax revenues shift, but maybe a municipality, it's common boundary agreements where a municipality says, yeah, and because you're sacrificing revenue, we agree to pay, you know, revenues to you, or some portion of revenues to you over a period of time. Agreements are not in perpetuity. They're normally for a period of time. I think 10 years is often a standard portion of time. What else can I tell you? And again, things like, why is the town maintaining a road that's in the middle of the city? And that costs them, it's difficult, it's inefficient in their route. Well, we agree, yeah, we'll take that inside the city, we'll maintain that. You know, so there's a lot of different elements to talk about from a strategic planning angle. So, Ashley, I don't know if you have more to say?
Have you spoken to townships about that yet?
We have not had that conversation yet. We've been doing preliminary research, and we wanted this body to be aware that conversation is likely to be coming up.
Yeah.
And so we wanted this body to be, again, aware that there's likely to be conversations in the near future, and when we finally get the bodies to engage, it's likely a conversation that would happen between planning and, you know, town board. Of course, it's heavy involvement by our offices here, but we wanted you to be aware and up to date with the progress that we've been making.
And I know just a couple examples quickly. The one you gave is 14 East, and if you ever looked at a city map down there for the members of the public that are here, it kind of looks like a chessboard. because this lot's in and this one's out. For example, the old True Gas building has never been annexed, and where the BMO Harris drive-through bank is, which was Dog and Sons back in the day, was never annexed, and where Duncan and AT&T is, was just recently annexed, that had been out. So you just kind of go, as they developed them, some of them they said you have to annex, and then they told them you don't have to annex. So you have a mess when you try to draw anything up. You have a mess. The other one I'm aware of, kind of up behind Allison Park, off Cardinal and then Chickadee Lane, up in the back, I think if you saw it, you might even assume the city owns that and maintains that, but that's still in the township as well, and they don't want it. Because they're sending a truck into town to plow there's one house up there. Sheila was Carol Sapp's house. Yeah, way up in the back, and they don't want it anymore because they're sending a truck in to plow for one house behind Allison Park. So yeah, I don't even know how many more of these you've found.
There's quite a few strange situations, and so it's really an opportunity rather than, it's just an opportunity to address the multitude of issues that we have all at once, rather than trying to piecemeal it. And so we did talk to the state Department of Administration about some of the challenges we were experiencing, and it was kind of like second nature with them, like, well, you guys just need to talk about boundary agreements. We're like, okay, you know, that's not been something that I was familiar with, but the DOA is very helpful, and so it is usually a lengthy process to work through this, but we do think from a city planning and growth, and as well as benefit to the town, there can be a lot of benefit to towns in this process as well, because oftentimes things will get negotiated, like the distance from the city limit that is considered extraterritorial, regulated by your extraterritorial zoning ordinances. So right now we're 1.5 miles. So you can be up over about 3 hills here, and guess where they have to come in order to do something on their property, or are supposed to be coming to do something on their property? City zoning. And so there are a lot of things to talk about that can be of mutual benefit to both the city and the town. So that's what we're trying to work towards.
Any questions or comments? Thanks again, Jason. Next on the agenda, item 5, short-term rental ordinance.
So this one is, again, it's a continuation of a conversation that we previously started. We did not meet last month, but you received an email that had a packet of information from the city of Hillsborough that was shared with you because I was contacted by the county, and they had advised that they're having their zoning conversations again, or sorry, rather short-term rental conversations again, and one of the things that they were in the process of reviewing was this information from Hillsborough that they had felt like it was nicely done. And so they may be incorporating some or all of that into their conversations and maybe their ultimate regulation. So under this, we would just like to know if you had any feedback on what you reviewed from Hillsborough, if there was anything that stood out to you, if you loved it, if you hated it, or any sort of feedback that we can take back to Michael as well as in our offices and continue to work towards creating something.
Go back to the checklist. I guess I would like to see something on the checklist where it's inspected by the fire department.
I think one of the things too that's important to, well, I'll give you my understanding from economic development and why I think it's a good conversation, is that we do see in city planning and in the periodicals we read, information we receive, that that short-term rentals inside the communities, if you don't start to plan and be deliberate about the safety of them and things like that, can end up as a runaway train. So it can affect the permanent residency, status of people here. So Richland Center and Richland County really are considered tourist destinations. And as we continue to work to promote that for the economy of our community, it's just kind of a natural progression that more people want to do things like Airbnbs. Airbnbs are good. They're a good element of our economy and our community, and I think it's a good business opportunity for those that have them and are interested in doing them. But again, it's partly our responsibility to make sure that what we're allowing as far as property uses in the community doesn't end up then becoming a detriment to the community. So you can see where communities have too many of these properties and they don't have proper rules in place, and they can become a problem. So that's a little bit of the background of how I see it from economic development. Mark might have another perspective from zoning, but I'm very happy that we're having the conversation, and early on in the process where the county was talking about it, I was still with the county and I was all for the conversation there. I think it's something that if we look at, do a good job of gathering resources and be deliberate about this, that we can have a policy that both promotes short-term rentals and makes the short-term rental selection that we have to people visiting our community some of the best short-term rental properties.
Questions or comments?
Just a comment, to your point, Ray, some of the stuff that I've read where the license is obtained, that is when the inspection happens, and many communities do have a fire inspection along with that, but that is to obtain a license. And sometimes communities don't have it written where that license has to be, the entire license process has to be renewed every year. They just have a simple yearly fee, but they don't have that backup with inspections.
Yeah,
Some communities do, and some don't.
see, I would like to see it done annually, because once it's completed, things get lax
Right.
Yeah,
afterwards.
yeah. And I guess the only other thing I'll bring up, back when Airbnbs first started, the whole idea was to rent out a room within your dwelling. And now they've moved to more of the Verbo style, which it's the entire home. And to your point, Jason, I was sitting in here one day and a gentleman walked in and was not happy with the Airbnb that was next door to him, primarily because of once again, the change of the neighborhood that happens, too many times during the month, where sometimes you have no issues and they're reading books in the backyard. Other times you do have issues where the police are called 3 and 4 times during that rental period. So when you do have the properties right in the community, I mean, I'm not going to bring up the housing shortage because we all know about that, right? But yeah, so to look at these different possibilities that we have to have a balance, because as we all know, we have home ownership and we don't like the heavy hand of government saying, you can do this, but you can't do that. I was a little surprised when I just read through this at the very beginning that, you have to be zoned R3 right from the beginning. So I don't know if we have that here. I don't know if haven't looked at the proposed, the zoning map that we agreed to. But that's about all I have. A good idea to keep looking at these to find something that works.
I'm glad, Karen, that you brought up that R3, because I was surprised too when I read that they are limiting it so much to just that district. And so that's definitely something to consider, where maybe there would be a district that would be more appropriate. Maybe it's not R1 where Airbnbs or short-term rentals are, but that's a significant limitation.
Yeah.
And so in my communication with the county, their interim zoning person, I did say, I was, again, intrigued and surprised by that, and I thought that would probably be something that we wouldn't be inclined to restrict to that degree, but certainly worthy of conversation, and I don't know, but that just seemed a lot.
Yeah. Like I said, I've read about this on both coasts, mainly the East Coast, where they're really having some major issues with this Airbnb programs, in that their housing is so limited, so expensive, supply and demand for them. I've also read in the Fox Valley area, specifically around Lambeau Field, where they do have quite a few of these as well.
I bet they do.
Yeah, and while they were trying to limit the number of Airbnbs that could be in an area, they were not successful with that, but I think I lost the trail a little bit. So I don't know if this has actually happened through the courts, but then what they were limiting is the number of times it could be rented within a 10-day period or 7-day period, something like that, so that they didn't have the changeover, every 3 days or something to that effect. So there's all kinds of options available.
What's the reason for limiting it to an R3 in the situation with Hillsborough?
I don't know precisely why they're limiting it to that. I could speculate. We have more, in an R3, right, you'd have multifamily housing, and there might be more transition or change in that, so it wouldn't be that quiet R1, single-family home kind of neighborhood. So I think it might be in relation to that, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, like, back to the original use for an Airbnb was a room within your home. So kind of the R3 idea, that you would have that already possibly going on, so.
Also, what is the seller's permit? Why do they have to have, or what does that mean exactly?
It's a form of business license.
Okay.
So you would have come in to be able to be certified to do numerous transactions for that purpose, would be my understanding or experience with it.
Gotcha.
And I think it also puts you in the Department of Revenue's circle, so that you're paying tax on sales tax.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's for sales tax.
Yeah.
It's for the collection of sales tax. So yeah, if you get a short-term rental, you either have to, Airbnb will collect it for you, but if you're not on Airbnb, then you yearly have to collect it yourself, by law.
Right.
So it's the requirement that they have it. I don't know if it's not really necessary when, if someone is on our Airbnb and VRBO only, there generally would be no reason to have a sales tax permit though, because you don't collect it yourself, you're not the collector at all, they just kind of give you a commission. So I don't see why it really should be required, but unless you're on one of those programs.
So it might be a case where if someone is strictly Airbnb and it's already being collected, that maybe they just sign an acknowledgement that they know, right? If that were to change, if they do direct booking or they're offering their short-term rental on any other platform that doesn't automatically collect those taxes, that they know that they would be required to get it. So we could cover the bases in that way if things were to change.
Yeah, because I've seen some in our area where they do have, I will find it listed like on an Airbnb or Vrbo, and then also on their posting or page, like Facebook page, where they do list, contact us directly. So you would have both.
I didn't realize you were referring to the state requirement. It wouldn't be uncommon for a municipality to have business licenses either. So I didn't realize you were referring to the state. But for example, lots of communities will say if you're going to do business, you actually have to have a business permit, right? So we often will receive people here that come and say, do I need to have a permit to open my business? Well, we don't have it, but it's not uncommon for them to exist.
Sheila, did you have a question?
I did. So my question is, I own property in the city, but it's not an Airbnb, but I do own property in the county that's an Airbnb. So if you put this in place, how will you choose, if you limit the number of Airbnbs like within the city limits, how will you choose which ones are going to be able to do it? I'm not sure what that was, but.
Yeah, through the phone, I don't know.
So I'm just wondering, you know, will it be a lottery system? Will it be, I mean, how are you going to do it? Because,
You're not expecting to limit anything, are you? That's not or is it?
I don't know, that's what I thought I heard Karen say, something about limit.
Yeah, so like I said, around the Lambeau Field area, the community around there, I don't know if it was Sheboygan or whatever, but they have tried to do that through the court system, and as far as I read, they were not successful, but I don't know if it was something they were going to bring back because there are so many around that area. So I was just bringing up another community, what they have done. That would have been most restrictive in everything that I've read, is to limit the number of units. But what they, I believe, did go through was just limiting the amount of times you can rent between a like 7 to 10 day period. Because like I said, we do have to have balance with people that do own that property, have the ability to, you know, rightfully have pretty much freedom of what to do with it, not without permits and that type of thing, but still.
Well, and I think up until, you know, this point where we are at today, the commission has reviewed examples like we're talking about Hillsborough tonight. Our attorney has provided, you know, data on minimum or maximum requirements that the state would allow, what would be legally defensible if we did implement regulation. But I think I can fairly say it's been exploratory, trying to determine what type of regulation would we want if we have regulation, who would enforce that, that sort of thing. So it's been more of a fact-finding mission thus far to try to create a draft ordinance that would then be reviewed, of course, by them and go to council and all of that. But I would say it's probably fair to say we're not at the very beginning stage, but we're not too terribly far away from that either.
Anything further on this agenda item? Okay, thank you again, everyone. Moving to item 6, comprehensive plan updates.
So we don't have any specific updates to the comprehensive plan to present to you tonight, but this is certainly an opportunity, if you all have been looking at that or working on that, if you wanted to provide any updates from your end or provide maybe some directive or suggestions or anything like that, we can utilize this agenda item as an opportunity for that and just any general discussion on the comprehensive plan.
So I'll just mention not on the comprehensive plan, but at one time we had the downtown revitalization plan in place, and I think it's still out there somewhere on a shelf. So with a wayfinding sign program, you know, that's a check mark that can be put on that one, and I'm sure it's in the comprehensive plan as well. I just haven't pinpointed it.
Karen, when you brought that up, I know it's been discussed at council and so on, but I don't know if everybody here has heard that. Does anybody want comprehensive plan? Wayfinding signs are kind of tied into that plan. You want to tell the folks what's coming with the signs and move hard on it?
Come on, go get it.
Sure.
Why not?
Show and tell. That's always fun, right?
We snuck in there I saw it peeking out, so. It's really neat.
Yeah, this has been a group effort, as they always are. So Jody Meaden from Parks Department, obviously Jason Glassrunner, and myself, and I'm probably forgetting somebody, so that's what I need to name, but,
I think Jason Cole was he?
oh yes, Jason Cole as well, and whatever.
I know. I tried sticking it on the wall at the council meeting, but it didn't stay, so.
That's true.
So what Jason's holding is a fairly good mock-up of what they will look like, approximate size. And while this looks really huge, is this the 42
This
inch?
is the mid-sized one, yeah.
Yeah, when we actually went and put them up on the signs that we have right now, they're only like at 2 inches on each side bigger. So.
It does look bigger, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks huge, but really, they're not once you get them up. So, yeah, so like I said, we will have, so as the DOT defines, wayfinding is to be mostly driven for new residents and visitors. So that's how they're geared. So we will have 25 signs as well as the 2 entrance signs going in soon, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully this, what we'll call spring, yeah. So, it's been a long process, but it's been a good one. There's been committees involved. The branding effort moved this project forward in a big way. So thank you to both committees for the county and the city, as well as our graphic designer that worked hard on it as well. So, yeah, we're excited.
Looks great.
Anything else on the comprehensive plan? Okay, now do we have department reports? I'm not expecting any unless somebody, if we did that through the agenda. Okay, then the next meeting date, what's the date, fourth Wednesday?
May 22nd, I believe.
22nd?
So the 1st of May is a Wednesday, so it's kind of an early seeming meeting for us.
That sounds right then. That would be the fourth one. That work for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, next meeting will be the 22nd of May at 5:30. All right, next on the agenda is adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Karen's got that. Is there a second? Was that Lisa? And all in favor of adjourning tonight's meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks everyone. Tonight's meeting is adjourned.